Good afternoon. Chair calls to order the Board of Trustees meeting for the Greenville LaFleur Consolidated School District. May we bow our head for a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. So moved. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Number 3, Mr. Brooks, policy update.
Policy updates.
So, colleagues, if you all recall, during the work session, I did ask Attorney Palmer to look at a few of our policies as it pertains to use of school facilities, as we had recently had a plethora of discussions regarding such. And was there anything specifically, Attorney Palmer, that you found in that policy that maybe the board needs to be more consistent about in its doing its due diligence when allowing outside entities to utilize the school property?
So, Mr. President, regarding the school rental policy that's in place, that particular policy basically allows or reflects the board's prerogative to set forth that policy and to be enforced or implemented by the superintendent. The superintendent would have the initial discretion as to allowing individuals to rent that facility according to the established policy, according to the established rents set forth. If there are any accommodations that would be made outside of what is already policy, then the board would need to approve those particular accommodations that are inconsistent with the policy, or from another standpoint, it allows accommodations as not set forth within the existing policy or the rent schedule.
Colleagues, are there any questions?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
As you all know, like Dr. Bailey said, we've had lots of discussion on this particular policy. How do we ensure that all agencies are consistently treated the same way? If everything is provided that the school district is asking, how do we ensure that it is consistent? Is there anything that can be put into this policy?
Ms. Lewis, to answer your question, when you say consistency, the policy is the policy. Now, getting to your point, the policy should be evenly reinforced by the district across the board. It should not treat one group different from another group, one individual from another individual. There should be consistency in the implementation of that policy, no matter who comes for consideration of renting a facility. I think in my review of that policy, it is clear. The rents should be set forth according to the categories. It's about 5 categories set forth in that particular policy, and it outlines a pretty good description of those particular entities that may want to rent a school-related facility. It also outlines the makeup of certain groups within that policy, in addition to the description of those groups. So if you have the consistent definitions of those groups, you have the language which is clear as far as the delegation of duties within the policy between the board and the superintendent. If you have consistency as far as the rent schedule being implemented. Also, again, if there are any accommodations that are going to be made outside of what is already established, that has to come back before the board for its consideration before that rental is approved, because the superintendent only is empowered to operate in the board established policy.
So if you can remember, one organization was gonna be charged a fee, and then when it came up again, it was presented to be waived. So that's what I'm trying to make sure, remains consistent. Now, I understand what you're saying, maybe there's no more wording to be put into the policy. So, I'm just asking, how is that addressed going forward? To make sure it's not, to ensure that it does not continue to be an issue.
So again, Ms. Lewis, the board policy is set forth, I think it's in black and white, I think it is clear. It is up to the district administration to evenly administer that particular policy regarding any individual or group that comes before his consideration. Now, outside of what is in black and white, I can't speak to other things. All I can say is the policy, from my standpoint, is pretty clear, and it just has to be implemented accordingly, fairly and judiciously as it set forth.
Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? So, Attorney Palmer, under the same conversation, have you had an opportunity to review the termination clause in the contract for Greenwood Little Theater, as the district did agree to allow them to utilize a facility at no cost?
I have reviewed that particular document, Dr. Bailey. The school district as well as Greenwood LaFleur Theater have outs in that particular agreement. So depending on when either one of those entities crosses that bridge, that can be something that's considered by the board when it comes up.
When you have a moment, can you email that termination clause to all of the board?
I will.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, I'd like to point out that they might not pay a fee, they paid thousands of dollars to make improvements upon Davis School. Thousands. And they have other grant opportunities that will help the entire community. So it's not like that they're getting a free ride somewhere.
Any other comments, colleagues? Hearing none?
And Mr.
I'm sorry.
Abraham, your comment is duly noted. Thank you.
Number 4, Mr. Brooks.
Number 4, approval of the school board minutes.
And those are minutes from August the 1st, regular board meeting, August the 9th, special call meeting, August the 11th through the 12th, board and administrative retreat, and August the 30th, work session minutes.
This page is the August 11th meeting long.
I'm seeing it on 28, Mr. Lewis. It's 28.
28.
Attorney Palmer, have you had opportunity to review the minutes as provided?
I have.
Can you advise on the accuracy of the minutes?
Dr. Bailey, everything seems to be in order based upon my review.
Attorney Palmer, question. To your knowledge, does our minutes ever reflect if meeting announcements or any convening of the board is publicly announced or shared? Is that information typically part of our minutes? I don't believe it is, but I'm not 100% sure. And I guess Ms. Rimmer can also speak to that. But
It has down on here that I was absent. I was there, but I kept getting cut off. I was there by telephone
for
both days.
what,
for the
retreat? Okay.
Yes. And also, the notices were not placed at the time that they were supposed to be placed. And they was not on the website at the time that they should be placed. For that particular meeting.
So, Ms. Rimmer, the question was that I presented to Attorney Palmer. Has our minutes ever indicated that an announcement for a public meeting, work session, or what have you, being placed in a particular location, has that ever been included in minutes for a meeting? On the notice, okay. Go ahead, Ms. Rimmer.
Also on page 28, I'm absent as well, but I was present by phone.
And Ms. Abraham, you said both the 11th, right, Ms. Abraham, the first day by phone?
I was there physically the 12th, the 11th, I was there by phone until I got cut off 3 times. Yeah.
So you're omitted for the 12th as well, Ms. Abraham?
No,
Just the 11th, okay.
I was there for the 12th.
Okay, so the 11th, can you make those corrections? All right. Any other corrections, colleagues? Attorney Palmer, anything else?
Subject to those corrections, Mr. President, I don't know of any other correction.
All right. Any other?
I
Go ahead, Ms. Wilson.
I just want to ask a question. I know it's in this packet, but I cannot find it, but it relates to the posting of that meeting for the retreat. Now, I know that it's not always in the minutes, but it was something to that effect, that it was posted on time.
Is it part of work session?
I would have thought the work session would have been identical to this.
What the most is?
If you look at page 29
Okay.
of the retreat minutes, also on page, yes, that's the notice. That's the notice that was placed in the in the door. Also on Facebook, whenever there's I suppose a quorum, we have an hour to place the notice. The notice was placed on social media, which automatically cross-references to our website. So on the website, the notice was on the website. It was in several places. It was not in the place that was indicated on the letter. It was not under the news, but it was on the feed, and it was also on the calendar.
Okay, so, Mr. Brooks, do you know what time it was posted?
I posted it on Facebook at, I think it was, the meeting was at, well, the retreat was at 10 o'clock, and I posted it like at 8:30, which gave us enough notice. And the fact that it did not have a code to begin with, because whenever you dialed in, the code automatically dialed as well. When I did a test, I didn't have to input a code, but I went back and placed the code on there just in case someone may not, be able to get in. But it was all placed on the website by cross-referencing by social media.
So, question, Attorney Palmer, what does the policy say about the posting?
Ms. Lewis, generally postings are an hour before the meeting is set.
Okay, but does it specify exactly where they should be posted?
Ms. Lewis, this is a legal issue, and if there's something that needs to be addressed, it would not need to be addressed in open session.
Okay, so
Well, it's on the agenda, but I wasn't aware of anything needing to go into executive session. But if that's your wishes, Ms. Lewis, we can go in executive. Making a little for that. Making a thing. All right, colleagues, any other questions? But I will point out, while all of your questions are certainly valid and your concerns are valid, as suggested during our retreat, the purpose of the work session is to work out all of the kinks, ask all the questions that are relevant at that time. And of course, we get additional information over the weekend following the work session, which you may have questions about. If there are no other corrections, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval for the August 1st, 2023 regular board meetings, the August 9th, 2023 special call minutes, the August 11th and 12th, 2023 Board and Administrative Retreat minutes, and the August 30th, 2023 work session minutes,
And if it's okay, Mr. Brooks, I'm gonna add subject to the necessary corrections, if that's okay with you.
subject to the necessary corrections.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay, Jackie Lewis.
Please allow the record to reflect the nays. Ayes have it, motion carries. Number 5, Mr. Brooks.
Number 5, interim superintendent report. This is my report, maintenance report, state of the district report, MDE accreditation summary. If there are any questions, we'll be glad to answer.
So, Mr. Brooks, my question, and I see Mr. Howard is here. Good afternoon, Mr. Howard. During the retreat, I know, as we all are aware, many of our buildings are in bad shape. And I know that we have contracted with, I believe, Upchurch to replace some HVAC units. I'm not certain as to how far we've come with that, but I know specifically Principal Roy at Elsie was very adamant about the number of spaces that she has that lack air. And it appears to be an ongoing issue. I'm not certain if it's tied to the ESSER funds and that HVAC work, but just to see if we can get an update. I do recognize we're coming into fall, so temperatures will change. But as she said, it's been an ongoing problem for about 3 or 4 years.
We're addressing the issues as swiftly as possible. I talked to Scott Tanksley earlier today, and we received a couple of split systems at the warehouse, and we're continuing to get equipment in now, but we're addressing those issues as quickly as possible.
What's a split system?
The condensing unit on the outside and the evaporator coil on the inside.
Okay. Colleagues, are there any questions?
Yes. I noticed, when I hear classrooms,
Yeah, classroom.
and students are in those classrooms,
If they are, they have the portable units, and if not, the principals have located them in different classrooms.
thank you.
And Mr. Howard, can you just approximately how much money we've spent from our ESSER funds to get our HVAC updated? I don't know if that has taken place at some schools and not others, or just to your knowledge. You can get back with us if you.
Okay, yeah, we'll get back with you on that.
It's a lot of money though, right?
It is.
All right. Okay. Any
Well, I
other
also
questions?
have Mark and John here that can discuss that.
Mr. Pipper, if it's okay, can you give us a roundabout figure of how much we spent for HVAC?
At this point, through pay application number 8, we've spent about $3 million.
Okay, thank you.
And that's either at the 2 Threadgill schools, Bankston, or Greenwood High School.
Thank you. And again, I guess that goes to my point about making sure we spread the money around. Amanda Elder was not even included on what Mr. Pipper just shared. Yet, we're pouring money into specific schools, and of course, again, it speaks to the need for a bond because all of our schools have issues in one way or the other. Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none, Mr. Brooks?
Bond issue discussion.
Wait one second. Anybody questions about 5.2 or 5.3 before we move on? 5.2 is the state of district report, and 5.3 is the MDE accreditation summary. I believe Ms. Johnson presented that for us at the work session. Are there any questions about that, colleagues, before we move on? Seeing none, Mr. Brooks, number 6, bond issue.
Bond issue discussion.
Attorney Palmer, Attorney Young, floor is yours.
pleasure to. All right, can you hear me okay? All right, good to be back with you. Just building off of our previous discussions, I've met with what I would call the internal bond working group, Mr. Brooks, Dr. Coleman, Ms. Rimmer, Attorney Palmer. We've had several discussions and wanted to bring you up to date on where we are and what's the proposal in front of you tonight. What we've settled on is a bond election for December 12th. The maximum principal amount of the bonds would be $45 million. As the school board, you have the authority to set the date and the polling places and the form of the ballot. And after a good bit of discussion, also with Mr. Stockstill, who has been extremely helpful with information for us, the recommendation, the suggestion is that the election be held on the 12th at Greenwood High School, LaFleur County High School, and Amanda Elsie High School. That's similar to what another county school district is doing right now, voting at some of the schools in the district. What we have, and Ms. Rimmer where's this going? Do you have in front of you, it's a one-page resolution? Okay. All right, this is pretty straightforward. But what this is a resolution of the school board stating its intent to have the election, the bond election, on December 12th at the three schools that I mentioned. Maximum principal amount, $45 million to build a new high school. Once this is approved tonight, then we will be moving forward full tilt to prepare for the resolution, for the election, excuse me. And we would expect to be back to the October 3rd board meeting, at which time you would adopt an additional resolution approving the formal form of the ballot, polling places, notice of the election, taking care of some more of the formalities for holding the election. Attorney Palmer, did you have anything else you want to add?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
At this time, has it been established where it's going to be located?
Mr. Brooks is going to make that recommendation. Mr. Brooks?
Yeah. Interim superintendent recommend that the location be off Highway 82 West, from 16 section there.
Do you know that specific?
Located between Greenwood and Little Bena. It's approximately 635 acres of land. It's kind of behind the Catfish place.
Is that land developed or undeveloped?
Undeveloped.
Do you know about how much it's gonna cost to develop it?
We have been talking with the architect, and we have come up with a final figure, but we've been discussing that.
Colleagues, are there any other questions or concerns?
Well, I have concerns.
Yes, ma'am.
Just because of the amount of money that's gonna take, and there are other places along that same highway between Greenwood and Edabina that have sewer and water and everything. It's a go.
All right, colleagues, any other concerns? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
The interim superintendent recommend approval of the resolution stating that the board intend to call a special election on the assurance of general obligation bond and authorizing the preparation for the issuance of the bond.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved. Second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The nays have it, motion does not carry for lack of a majority. Thank you, Mr. Young.
Thank you.
Mr. Brooks, number 7.
Sixteen session report.
Good evening.
Okay, today we have, 4 hunting and fishing licenses that are expired, and, we're gonna go ahead and open bid for those, or receive bids on. I'm gonna give the board a copy. On the first one, opening bids for the hunting and fishing contract for 1522 North 1 West, containing 101.4 acres. More or less, the prior rent was $1,500, and it was in Fort County hunting and fishing. But as of today, we have received no bids, for that money. So if the board wants to re-advertise or solicit, a bid, proposal for the lease, through a private contract, we have an option.
Colleagues, what is the will of the board?
If we don't re-advertise, what happens, if we do not re-advertise?
We can get the, wildlife fisheries to go out and post it, saying no honey. I did speak to a couple of people, and they were saying that this is not what we call prime honey land. So I haven't checked it out myself, but I will go out there and look at it to see, what it looks like. But other than that, I think that's why we've been having this problem that people, section of land that nobody really wants to live on.
And is the current rent, it says prior, so is that what they've been renting it for?
That's what they paid out of private contract, was $1,500, but that was only for a 1-year agreement, because it was private.
And is that, okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And thank you. And is that, the same for the other contracts? I see the term prior,
We are referring to the other one.
Yes.
Second, third, fourth, oh no, it's, everything's a little different. So, we got bids on the other,
okay,
that's what I mean by that.
gotcha,
We got,
okay.
we got other bids. So if you follow along with the sheets I gave you, that was one, and it said no bids,
Ms. Abraham?
Well, I guess I could really answer, they don't want it anymore either, the hunt club.
According,
I guess
no one bid it.
Okay, thank you.
Just for number 1,
Just the number one.
thank you.
Colleagues, what's the will of the body? Do you want to re-advertise or you take enter into a private contract?
So when we enter into private contracts, what can happen?
They will solicit, information from other, previous leases and see if they were willing to pay, say amount, I'm not gonna tell them the amount, but if we can get over $1,500 out, we can probably bring it to the board, for approval. But nothing was done with Robert Cooper. But it's all figured.
Is there a motion, colleagues?
I move that we go into a private contract.
Second that motion. It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried that we, enter to a private contract for hunting and fishing on 1522 North 1 West containing 101.40 acres. Mrs. Washington.
All right, so
Was that the only bid?
What is the will of the body?
I move that we accept the bid, from bidder, Diddy Y Diddy at $10,000.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the bid, for Bid Y Diddy Farm for 1621 North, 1 East, containing 213 acres at $10,000 per year. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Third bid on the bid for contract 1620 North, 1 East, containing 121.6 acres. This contract was filled by David Lear, paying $2,000. I have 4 bids.
All right, colleagues, what's the will of the board?
Colleagues, I move that we allow Mr. David Lear to match Mr. Greg Carr at $13,000 for, the hunting and fishing contract.
Is Mr. Lear here? Are you, Mr. Lear, you here? All right. Can you ask if you would match it now? You'll match it now? Yeah. Okay, all right, so what happens since he, is it, or is that a bid or we accept?
You can reject all bids and then you go into, auction.
Does the auction start at 13,000? Colleagues, what's the will of the board?
If, colleagues, if Mr. Lear would like to go through the auction process, I move that we allow Mr. Lear, since he is the current leasing, correct? He can, participate in the auction process if he so desires.
If we have any other people that are here that actually submitted it. So that is an option, so someone else is here that submitted a bid. Okay, so you got more than one person here that's.
Is it, Attorney Palmer, would it be appropriate to allow them to bid at this time?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Washington, the floor is yours.
Bid right now stands at 13,000, do I hear them, or 13,500? 13,500, sorry, 13,500. 13,500, or 13,500.
I mean, I don't have to be like that, right?
Well, if the board rejects the bid, so now if they're rejected, then both of you have opportunity to bid. Or y'all rejecting the bid, or you accepting the bid?
We can reject anyone.
No, so we haven't rejected anything, so, no, we haven't rejected, so the question becomes, is my understanding that Mr. Lear, agreed to match the 13,000 from TG Farms, correct? Mr. Lear? All right, so the question again to Attorney Palmer was, based upon the match, how do you determine who, controls the land? Does the board decide if we award it to Mr. Lear, or do we award it to TG Farms? Or, to Mrs. Washington's point, we enter into an auction that begins at 13,000.
You can reject all bids, you heard what they said. You can reject all bids, and then you go to the bid process. Or you can set 13,000 as a bid, that's all.
So is a representative from TG Farms present? No? TG Farms? TG. So what is the will of the board?
So when we asking, if we ask Mr. Lear to match, have we rejected Greg Carr?
You asking that he want to
Match.
match.
And what was his response?
Yes.
He said yes, okay. So we haven't rejected.
So that's the question, are you accepting his offer, or are you rejecting all bids?
I move that we accept the offer from Mr. Lear for 1620 North 1 East, containing 121.6 acres at 13,000 per year. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Leard. Ms. Washington.
On the fourth one, it was open bids for a fishing contract for 1617 North One East, containing 229 acres of land. The prior contract was held by, Frank Hornsby, deceased. He was paid $5,000, but because there been some issues with the granting of easement, easement that was there is no longer available. And I talked to the Secretary of State, Mr. Cheney, and also, Mr. Palmer, Attorney Palmer was present as well. And his recommendation to us was to hold off. I do have 4 bids, so I did wanna go ahead and accept the bids, but not to open them until a latter date in which we find out whether or not, well, by law, they have to grant an easement, and I'm gonna say that, but it's where the easement is going to be placed is the question right now. So I talked to the, Army Corps of Engineer, I still haven't spoken with anyone, but I did call it off. So I'm still trying to get in touch with someone to say, hey, what avenue can we have to get to that link? Because by law, they have to grant us easement, and if they don't, depending on who it is, then the law steps in and says, okay, we have a right to sue them in order to get the grant right to our property. So,
Ms. Washington, so are they aware that there's an easement issue?
yes, I think everybody that submitted their bid knows the easement issue.
How was they notified?
I'm not certain if the farmers who originally, had the land now, but they are the ones who said, no, you can't come through here. There is a property on the levee, and the Army Corps engineer was able to go some other route to get to the property. But according to, I think the Hornsby family, they said that section might be Mr. Cheney, who told me that piece is not accessible for a farmer to go through because the landowner is saying, no, you can't go through. But according to Mr. Cheney, also, you have to allow, Mr. Flowers, an opportunity to work with the Mississippi Forestry Commission. They have to have a right of easement to get to that property. So I'm still trying to get everybody on board here to say, hey, what are we going to do? How can we fix this problem? Now, the problem lies between Holmes and Fort County, it's on the county line. So, we're dealing with 2 school districts that have some,
Interstate.
right. So, we gotta work between the 2, and then you got the private owners.
Attorney Palmer, is it within our authority to accept the bid as Ms. Washington recommended?
I would not advise the board to accept any bids until the legalities of this particular property is cleared up.
Duly noted. Any other questions or concerns, colleagues? Yes, sir, may I help you?
We bid on that property, and being that it's new information to us, we think it ought to be, put up rebid, and all those bids be thrown away. Just, once y'all figure it out, then you send out another bid, and all the new bids are taken.
Thank,
That changes things.
yes, sir, definitely noted, and thank you for your comments. We're gonna follow the direction of council, and the board will not take action on, the items or the bids that have been received. Number 5, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Washington.
Okay, the 5th one is an approval for a reassignment of a lease on lot 4. Will Matthews was previous, leasing to assign Malibu Holdings LLC. The document should have been, I have an official document with me, the attorney brought it back today, for signature with the board, please, transfer, assignment.
I don't see anything, colleagues, unless I'm overlooking something.
So I might have been, I had, this, but saying to Nicholas Cobb, I think, and Mr. Cobb wants to relinquish his rights to the property to the Malibu home.
Attorney Palmer, have you had opportunity to review this document?
Attorney Oates.
Mr. President, Ms. Washington did forward me this matter for my consideration, and my understanding is that the tenant who had this property had not followed the terms and conditions of the lease agreement that was in place, and I advised Ms. Washington that that would have been a breach of that particular contract and lease agreement. That was the last conversation I had with Ms. Washington back August 23rd.
Mr. Oates, Attorney Oates came in, called and sent a message, email, had his client to make sure, all payments be, paid and posted, prior to this, so everything is in order as far as payments. He also paid for, I think it's 21 is when it's actually, happened. Previous, leasing hadn't paid, they had some kind of miscommunication as who was responsible for paying. So, Mr. Cobb did come in and he paid his, portion as well as the portion, of Mr. Matthews.
Colleagues, what's the will of the body? All right, so Ms. Washington, the board will not take action on this matter until we receive advisement from council. Is that correct, colleagues? All right, thank you, Ms. Washington. Number 8, Mr. Brooks.
Bailey update, Mark Pittman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pippert.
Can you hear me? Good evening. I'm going to have several action items for you tonight, and so what I'd like to do is kind of go over each project individually, bring up that action item. In our previous work session and prior to that, you should have the board report that I sent, and I'm not going to try to go through all the details of those reports, but just kind of hit the highlights. Let me first start on the budget update just to remind you, because some of these decisions you make will impact the budget. As it stands right now for your ESSER 2 money, you have about $1.2 million that has not been obligated. The obligation deadline is September 30th this month. So we need to make some decisions on that so we can get those funds obligated, otherwise we lose them. On the ESSER 3 funds, we have about 3.7 million unobligated funds, but obviously we have another year for that as that rolls into 2024-25. So with that, I'll first talk about the restroom renovation project. As I had mentioned, that project, basically all the work's substantially complete that was in the base contract. They are doing some change order items and working punch list items. The action item I have tonight is in reference to the remaining contingency allowance. There's about $200,000 left in the contingency allowance. Per contract, the superintendent has the authority to use those funds for changes such as I'm about to describe. But since the amount is so high, I did want to bring it to the board's attention so everybody knew. In all the restrooms throughout all the schools that we're doing in what I call the large gang bathrooms, boys and girls, not individual staff restroom. In those, I got a price to paint all those rooms. Paint the walls, paint the tile. There's a special primer that'll go on the tile. That cost to do that work is just under $161,000, or just over $161,000. You have about $200,000 left in contingency. Again, this won't be a change order to the contract, but it will take a document. document authorized by the superintendent to authorize that work. All right, HVAC project. As mentioned earlier, the work is primarily being done right now at the two Threadgill schools. Bankston and Greenwood High School are lagging somewhat behind. If all goes according to plan and to schedule, the two Threadgill schools should be done somewhere near the end of January, maybe into the first weeks of February. I do have an action item there. Over at the Threadgill Elementary School, for some reason, the administration area was omitted. There was no work to be planned in that area. They do have some problems in that. We got some prices to do that work, and it's $97,863 to do that. That, I do need board action if you want to implement that work for admin at Threadgill Elementary. And bear in mind, if you do approve that, of that 3.7 million that I told you you had in ESSER 3 funds, that will reduce that obviously about $100,000, knock it down to 3.6 million. So if I could get some action on the board, whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Colleagues, any questions or concerns regarding, and this is for the Threadgill Administrative Office?
Yes, sir.
here,
Threadgill Elementary.
For HVAC?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or concerns, colleagues?
Yeah, that wasn't included in the original contract?
No, sir.
What happened?
It was omitted. The engineers didn't have it in the documents. They had that area excluded for whatever reason. I can't tell you.
Mr. Brooks, have we had a conversation with our federal programs director and our business manager? Because Mr. Kipper, I'm looking at, some, from the work session until today, I'm looking at numbers that are different.
Yes,
From the
ma'am.
work session until today. So this is a document that I received, we rather received at the, work session. Last week sometime.
Yes, ma'am. That does look correct.
Mm-hmm.
I had updated it from, when I'd send you the board report is the Friday before the work session, and then additional information comes in to me, and so I brought it to you and hand delivered it at the work session. Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, and I see where our ESSER 3 total increased. Is that 7,000 plus dollars?
Yes, ma'am. Look,
Yeah.
we approved, you paid about $7,000. Well, the first column is the budget. You'll see 18 million. Second one is what's committed or been awarded. So about 14.3, so about 3.7 is uncommitted. And then the last column is what's actually been approved by me, sent to this house to be paid. It doesn't necessarily mean she has actually cut that check yet, if that makes sense. I put it in my report once I approve it and send it to her.
Okay, and you did state, when was the work supposed to be complete
At
on
the
the
Threadgill schools,
ESSER 2, the HVAC? When was that work to be complete?
might be ESSER 3. Oh, I'm sorry. It's to be completed by December 30th. We have recommended that you extend that date. The Department of Education has allowed 18-month extension to June of 25. We do recommend that you do that because we will not be able to liquidate all the funds by December. That's correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Ms. Brooks, have we had a conversation with our federal programs and our business manager regarding the numbers, the new numbers?
Not the new number.
Okay.
They are here.
Colleagues, I do ask if we could maybe discuss this in executive session if we can. Dr. Bailey?
I do not believe that this is something that executive session would cover, if I'm not, if I'm correct, right?
I'm not understanding exactly what the issue is. Is it timeline or is it funding? What is the issue? I'm not-
The issue is funding, and possibly a timeline. Because the last, on my notes from our work session, I see a summer 24
Did we ever approve a summer 24 completion date? Did we ever approve?
I'm not aware, I have to
Okay.
refer back to the
Alright.
minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Ms. Lewis.
The document you have right there, Dr. Moore, that you referring to from work session.
Yes.
Ms. Rimmer, is that in this pack?
No, I brought
I-
this in.
During the work session and handed them out.
Okay, do we have another copy?
I brought this in.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Are there any other questions, colleagues, regarding the proposed work at Threadgill Elementary School in the administrative office area for HVAC?
No questions.
Seeing none?
I have
I'm
a
sorry. Yes, ma'am.
suggestion, as it relates to ESSER two, I know we have to obligate that by September 30th.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
it's all possible on ESSER three, the $3.7 million, that doesn't have to be obligated until 24-25. Is it a possibility that we could possibly use that for the new structure? Or,
I don't think you can use it for a structure, maybe
well,
HVAC, maybe,
whatever.
that's possible, if I'm not
Because we
mistaken.
don't need every dollar we can get.
On the new building, I'll be honest, I would have to investigate that. I know your original ESSER applications don't contemplate that, so it would at least take a revision to those applications.
So, Ms. House, as our federal program director, it is my understanding that the funds could potentially be used for HVAC in a new facility. However, that's something that needs to be acted on sooner than later to be included in the application change, I get, if that's the correct word.
That's correct.
Any other questions, colleagues? Seeing none, is there a motion? And again, well, this is for, no, he said we need to act on the Threadgill piece, right?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, you don't have to. I guess you could not approve.
Right, but I want to give the board the
Right,
option to
right.
vote it up.
You
or
either
down.
have to
Right,
not.
right. Is that right?
Well, I move that we accept to go through with that action.
Is there a second?
I want to unreadiness.
We got to get a second first.
Okay.
If you come out of ESSER two,
Correct, that's a two.
second,
Yes, ma'am.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. Any readiness?
Yes. And when is this? ESSER two. When are we going to be complete with this, project?
It won't be by December 30th. John, do you know that? It will not be December 30th of this year. As I mentioned, the two Threadgill schools right now are scheduled to be complete January of this 24. So already I know I'm not going to obligate all those funds in time. And then Bankston and Greenwood High School are lagging behind that. So it'll be further into 24. So we have to make that request for extension of those funds.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Mr. Kipper.
Okay, now let's go to the carpet project. As you recall, carpet project was bid some time ago. Paul Jackson and Son. Their bid was about $1,230,000 to replace the carpet. Every school has some form or fashion of carpet in it. Davis and Claudine Brown had. An alternate was also bid to paint the walls of the rooms impacted by that carpet replacement. The contractor had to hold his bids until today. Today's the last day. We need some board action as to whether or not we're going to award that contract and do that work or not award it. And if you recall from the work session, if you do not, you will have to expense the design fees that are incurred for that work since the work won't be implemented.
Colleague, is there a motion?
I move that we do accept that. Because the new schools and the whole plan won't take effect tomorrow. And I've looked at some of the carpet in those places, it looks horrible. Our young people deserve better.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any other readiness, Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, so where would those funds come from?
Let me look. It's out of ESSER two. So that means
You exhausted.
we will have exhausted ESSER two, and we will dip into ESSER three funds to the tune of about $400,000.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? Nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Mr. Pipper.
Okay, last one, window work. As you recall, that too, the board had authorized to go out for bids. The bids were actually received last week on August 31st. We had 3 bidders. One bidder requested that his bids be removed as he made an error. So as it stands right now, we have a low bid at Bankston of about $1.5 million and a low bid at Threadgill at about, I think it was 2.5. I'm sorry, 2.372. Similar, well, now that the board's taken the actions that it has, we are now down to what, about 3.3 left in ESSER 3 funds. So you could award Bankston, you could award Threadgill, or I guess you could award both and have to come up with the difference in those funds. Or you could not award either one, in which case you would then expense the design fees to Beard Riser for the work performed. Don't quote me, but I think it's in the neighborhood of well, it'll be 80% of a 6% fee of whatever those bid numbers were. I'm sorry, I didn't do the math.
So I do have I take issue with that, Mr. Pipper, in the sense of, if I'm not mistaken, your firm was charged with managing these funds, and I would assume the RFP process, and clearly it shows that based upon the board's action just recently, that our budget would not allow us to, our ERSA budget anyway, to complete both of these projects. And now we're saying that if the district does not use its funds to add on to the ERSA money, then the district will more than likely incur an expense for design fees. I'm all for people getting paid for their services, but I just have a concern with the management portion of this to say, if you don't do X, then Y happens and the district is responsible for that. Again, that's just me. I'm not speaking for the board.
Understood.
Colleagues, what is the will of the board?
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
when will this, particular project end? And this is the window.
Let's see, I think the way that we bid it, he would start work around mid-September of this year, do the non-classroom work by the end of May of 24, and then he would do the classroom work over the summer of 24, between May, and actually I think we gave him to like September 30th, actually, to complete everything of 24.
And we're saying those two.
Yes, ma'am.
Is
Now,
this
but
Bankston?
remember, you don't have enough funds to do both now.
What's the deficit?
I think about $500,000, I believe.
Question. Ms. Thomas. Yeah. Ms. Thomas, where can that come from?
Is there anything that you can think of?
Well, if you recall, one of the other options we discussed at the work session was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, awarding Threadgill, and then you were concerned with Greenwood High School not doing Bankston. And
I
then,
have here on my notes from the work session, Bankston and Greenwood High School.
okay, I guess I said that backwards then. Not doing Threadgill, doing Bankston, and then going out for bid again on Greenwood High School.
But again, I'm of the opinion a lot of work is being done to Bankston, and we have so many other schools that are in need of repair. I can't even count on one hand how much work has been done at Amanda Elsie or LaFleur County. But yet, again, we're continuing to put money into what was once Greenwood Public School, and for District 4, I really take offense to that.
Mr. Pepper, can you give me that, date again for completion?
September 30th of 24.
So I have May session minutes?
The non-classroom areas should be completed by May 24th,
Okay,
and the classroom section's done over the summer, so the total contract won't be complete until September 24.
and that means, you were gonna be working during the breaks?
They'll work during the breaks and summer and potentially during the school year.
Potentially during the school year,
Yes, ma'am.
during class hours,
In the non-classroom areas.
non-classroom year.
That's September of this year through May of next year. Non-classroom areas.
Excuse me, board members.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We use our non-classroom areas, meaning cafeteria, gymnasiums, libraries. We use all areas in every school. I think the conversation was Threadgill. That was the one place where we had some leverage to move students around with those two-story buildings. We have more leverage with Threadgill than any other place. So we're asking from this level if we would consider Threadgill and the other schools at a later time using ESSER 3, because it works better with us continuing with regular classes and accomplishing a project at the same time.
And this is ESSER 3, Dr. Cole?
Yes.
Okay.
Along with some additional district funds, correct?
Well, no.
No,
if you-
no,
if you
no
only
additional funds with district.
award Threadgill, you have money for that. Yes, sir.
No additional funds for district.
Correct.
So Dr. Coleman, both levels being used?
Yes, it's going to require us to move some classes, but it is the only place in the district where we have some leverage to move students around. At no other campus can we move students. We will be disrupting instruction.
Colleagues, may I get the superintendent's input on this as well? Your thoughts, Mr. Brooks?
My concern was Greenwood High School, when we talked about doing the windows there. Like Dr. Coleman stated, that would be too much disruption on our students. But the plan for Threadgill, I don't have a problem with that. If we can relocate the students and do it weekends, at convenience times for the district.
If the board's pleasure is to award Threadgill, when the contractor's brought on board, there'll be what's called a pre-construction meeting, and we'll work with him and the district to minimize and eliminate as much disruption as possible.
As it stands now, we could start one full building. And then after that building is complete, we can move students and use another building where the students will still use that campus. And then those most valuable areas use school breaks and summer to complete.
Okay.
I think the goal was to get you in as many places or full places as possible. And Threadgill will help all of us achieve it. That's the best compromise that we can come up with.
Colleagues?
Your recommendation,
He said he got the recommendation. Ms. Abraham asked, was that your recommendation?
It would be.
Colleagues, any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion. And this is for Threadgill.
It sounds like we're
When the work of
recommending that we
Threadgill.
award the contract for Threadgill Elementary windows. And that would be to Ramsey Construction for $2,372,860. That's 2,372,860.
Do we have any money left?
Yes, sir, we will. I'll update the budget and get that to you sometime tomorrow.
Colleagues, what is the will of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Any other questions?
Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you.
Number 9, Mr. Brooks.
Public comments.
Are there any persons present that would like to speak to the board? Mr. Stockstill, if you can get Attorney Palmer's mic. We can allow you about 7 minutes, if that's okay.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elmer Stockstill. I'm the LaFleur County Circuit Clerk. But I'm not coming to you all today in my official capacity. I'm coming as community organizer and community volunteer. I've been running Illabena Recreation League, which is a nonprofit organization that I established about 15 years ago to help the youth in Illabena and surrounding areas. We provide athletic activities for the kids, football, baseball, and some other events throughout the year. We've also been very good about giving back to our community. I'm similar to what Ms. Abraham stated earlier about we don't want a handout. We give back to the community every year, basically. Last year we gave 7 to 8 football helmets, brand new helmets to the LaFleur County junior high team. They didn't have enough helmets to outfit all their kids, and we was able to provide that to them from our Illabena Recreational League account. We also bought basketball uniforms for the high school basketball team. I see Mr. Brown back there, the LaFleur County High School principal, when he was in need of funding to send kids to football camps that made the all-star teams. He came to us in the community, and we was able to provide a fund for several kids to go to football camps and to all-star games last year for the kids. Most of our kids that we provide services to are kids from LaFleur County Elementary. These are young people that's engaged in our programs. We provide mentoring and tutoring to them, to some of the kids. We also reach out to other nonprofits. Greenwood Mentoring Group provides transportation for us sometimes to go back and forth to football games. So that's why I'm here today, asking you all as a board to approve us for using LaFleur County High School football field. We've been used for the last probably 8 to 10 years. And ask you all, secondly, first for the usage, and secondly for the waiver, to waive the fee for us, so we can continue to provide those services to our kids. In a small town like Illabena, kids have nothing else to do. This is it, you know, and the coaches that I have, they're volunteers. They're out there today. That's why I want them to come to the board meeting with me, but they're out there pressing with the kids today and just volunteering, and the kids just look forward to it every year. I see Dr. Moore right there, and Dr. Moore, you know, firsthand that her kids competed against some of our kids from Illabena in baseball, and so we have fun out there, and it keeps kids away from other things. You know, it's out of mind, it's a devil's workshop. And we don't want that for our kids. We want them to stay engaged. So I'm asking you all to approve that for us. And as Ms. Abraham stated, I'm not asking for a handout because we give back so much. A lot of things we give, I hadn't even mentioned it because it's just automatically for us in the community. We close to the community of Illabena, and we try to make sure we do everything we can to assist our kids.
Any questions, colleagues, for Mr. Stockstill? Thank you, Mr. Stockstill. Are there any other? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Attorney Palmer.
Yes.
Would we still be in compliance with our policy of the usage of facilities if we could pass a motion that allows for all 501c3 nonprofits to utilize the facilities without a fee, unless there's going to be extra expense incurred by the district? My concern is what Ms. Lewis's concern is. I want it across the board. I don't want for one person they get a fee that is waived and another person is not. I'm fine if it's a 501c3 nonprofit that we don't charge a fee.
So, Ms. Abraham, to answer your question, if you look at the policy EBH, again, it gives a thorough classification and breakdown of different groups. Under Class C, it says public service use. It includes and it itemizes nonprofit, non-political groups, clubs, organizations, or individuals without paid staff unrelated to school use whose activities are philanthropic and are and would be considered by community standards as being worthwhile to the community as a whole may apply as indicated below for the use of certain school facilities. And then it breaks down further. It says public service users may charge admission or sell or offer sell merchandise provided that the proceeds therefrom are solely used for philanthropic purposes. Public service use includes, but is not limited to, community concert performances or civic club fundraisers, etc. And they come under a rental charge for Class C use as found in rate schedule A. So it refers you back to the rental rates for a Class C organization. So this is a similar situation as cities, counties, school districts that oversee certain facilities that can be rented out. You have a general policy that outlines what the uses can be used for, as well as maybe the organizations that can use those, even a rental schedule. That particular entity could waive a fee if it makes a finding that that in this particular instance, the district would benefit from that particular service, or the kids that it serves, or the stakeholders, or whatever it looks like. But again, if that is the case, the board has to make that on record as to why it is not going by its general policy and the reasons therefore set forth. Did I answer your question?
Would it be too broad to say that we could amend the policy that 501c3 nonprofits would not have a fee?
So, Ms. Abraham, to answer your question, the board is in full control of what the policy said. If it wishes to write that in the policy, the board has full right and power to do so. But as it stands right now, you have different breakdowns of organizations associated with a rental fee based upon that association. And again, that's what the policy says. And the only way that there's an exception to that is if someone comes before the board, well, they're going to go to the superintendent first, make application. If there is a deviation request from the policy, they have to come before the board and ask the board for an accommodation. If the board is going to make that accommodation, it has to put on record the reason why it is going differently from the set policy on record as a part of its minutes.
Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none?
I do have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have to make a policy change, Attorney Palmer, before we make our, or can we, if we can, if we are voting for it to pay, do we make a policy change before or after?
Dr. Moore, a policy change is not necessary. Again, if the board wishes to approve the proposal as presently before it, it would simply need to make a finding as to why it is going to waive that particular fee as set forth in its policy.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Brooks, 10.1.
Approval of the facility use request from Elmer Stockdale Sr.
And your colleagues, you have this information in your packet, and if I'm not mistaken, on page 103, there's a request for a waiver of the fees associated with use of the facility. Are there any additional questions or concerns?
I just wanna make sure that if others come before us wanting a waiver fee, that they are allowed that. Because a couple of months ago, there was a community free to the public, health fair, and it was not voted that,
Ms. Abraham, the attorney has gone over the policy, I want to say at least 3 times tonight. As discussed at that meeting, no one ever presented a motion to waive the fee. The board cannot act on anything when a motion is not presented. I believe you agreed with that.
And in addition to that, Dr. Bailey, I think we approved that, did we not?
We did approve use
We
of the
approved,
facility.
didn't we approve that?
no, you got the waiving of the fee.
All right, colleagues, are there any other discussions? Mrs. Lewis?
I do have a comment. I do think that this policy needs to be looked at again. Because, and I have nothing against what Mr. Stockstill is doing.
I don't either.
I agree. Not only Itta Bena, but Greenwood. I mean, anytime we're doing something for students, I think that's what we should do. But we need to relook at this policy because it's gonna come up again. And it doesn't look professional that one organization with that status is denied and then everybody else is approved. Now, that's just my opinion.
And I totally agree, and that's the point why I asked Attorney Palmer to look at the clause in the termination contract for Greenwood Little Theater. Because again, they're using our facilities at no cost. And the board, I believe unanimously, approved that, if I'm not mistaken.
And I cannot recall, Dr. Bailey, anytime we had any organization in our community, east or west, in LeFleur County, that we did not approve. I don't recall that.
I didn't recall it on my time at the board, and I said it when we first voted on, when Mr. Stockstill first brought this up, that all the nonprofits, I've never heard of charging a fee. Even though it might be in the policies, we never had a problem waiving.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion. Did you make your recommendation, Mr. Brooks? Did you make your recommendation? Go ahead, I'm sorry, I apologize.
The interim superintendent recommends consideration to approve Edmund Stockstill Sr.'s request to use the LeFleur County High School football field to host Little League football games.
Are you open to including the no cost? Is that?
I am.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. 10.2, Mr. Brooks.
Approval to facility use request from Delta Area Association for improvement of schools.
I don't think we have it in our packet. 107, okay, I apologize. 108, okay. I see it, I'm sorry. Thank you all. And what is this for, Mr. Brooks?
They want to use the auditorium to train teachers, semi-teachers, and some visiting teachers from other districts.
Colleagues, any questions or concerns? Seeing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent recommends consideration to approve the request from the Delta Area Association for Improvement of Schools to use the auditorium inside of the Educational Service Building on September 11, 2023 from 7:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m.
And are they too asking to have the fee waived? Are they too asking to have the fee
Yes.
waived? Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. 10.3, Mr. Brooks.
Donation acceptance approval.
Colleagues, beginning on page 111 and I believe 112, you have an email that indicates that Phoenix Technologies would like to provide a check in the amount that would potentially cover the cost of the board retreat as in a sponsorship. Are there any questions? Mrs. Lewis?
Does this company provide any services for the district?
Not at this time. Are you asking me?
Mm-hmm.
No.
You said not at this time,
Yeah,
so they have in the past?
I'm not sure. I haven't been there.
Speaking to the mic, Mr. Lewis.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Can we ask somebody else? Mrs. Johnson? You get a mic if you don't mind.
No, this company has never provided service, to my knowledge, unless they did it before I came here.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
Interim Superintendent recommends school board acceptance of the aforementioned donation in the amount of $2,478.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Next, colleagues, we have the consent agenda, which covers items 11.1 through 11.13. We'll give you a moment to peruse all of that information, which was shared during the work session, if I'm not mistaken.
Dr. Ray, let me be clear. So if one misses a work session, are we not gonna go back over those items on the document or on the docket, or what?
No, ma'am. If it's under consent, then all the questions and concerns were presented at the work session. If I'm not mistaken, Attorney Palmer, as we were advised during the retreat, between the time of the work session and the meeting, once the packet is released, if there are any questions, those questions should be or can be addressed to the superintendent.
That is correct. Generally, if you have a work session, then either a board member would attend the work session for the planning of an upcoming meeting, or if there are any questions, that particular board member, if he or she is not the president, would either consult with the superintendent or the board president regarding any questions regarding items on the agenda.
Any other questions, colleagues?
Give me the number again, Dr. Bates.
Yeah, I'm not attorney yet. 11.1 through 11.13. Are there any questions, colleagues? Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval for the interim superintendent recommends approval of consent agenda 11.1 through 11.13.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Ms. Rimmer, please let the record reflect that Ms. Abraham voted nay. Item number 12, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the Save the Music grant.
Can y'all tell me what page? I'm sorry, I'm on. Thank you. 209, Ms. Rimmer, is what Dr. Moore said. All right, colleagues, on page 209, the executive summary regarding the Save the Music grant. If I'm not mistaken, I believe during work session, Dr. Coleman or Mr. Brooks spoke to now this particular grant will serve Greenwood Middle, LaFleur County High, and LaFleur Elementary School, which touches all of our schools for the most part with music. All middle and all high schools and one elementary now. Are there any questions, colleagues? Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends the board approve the grant agreement from Save the Music Foundation.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. 13, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel recommendation, job description.
Questions, colleagues?
Yes, question. I do not see a timeline for the position of superintendent. Has everyone presented?
No, ma'am, one has not been presented to my knowledge. But I will ask for the board's consideration, and if the board approves of the job description, that considering that Mr. Brooks's contract is set to expire at the end of December, that we potentially look at setting a deadline for the submission of applications for the end of the month, which I believe will be the 29th, again, for the board's consideration. Any questions or concerns, colleagues? The recommendation for 13.1.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the attached job description for the superintendent in a hiring deadline of September 29th, 2023.
Correction, application deadline.
Application deadline.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second. Then moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion fails for lack of a majority. 13.2, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel report 2023-2024.
Colleagues, I believe that ends on page 231, the personnel report. Are there any questions, colleagues?
Okay, so you're saying it on this one, just what we read?
I believe, is that correct, Ms. Rimmer? I think Ms. Wentz spoke to this as well about something being in a different color.
We've got yellow.
This is 13.2.
Those were some added persons and some change in salary.
In the yellow?
Yes. Some persons has been moved from one position to another position. Ms. Brooks, have we consulted with our business manager?
Yes, we have.
Ms. Thomas? We are approaching the ending of ESER 2 and 3. My question is, have all offices been triangulated in regard to discussion about salary increases?
Dr. Moore, what you see in yellow, that's not really that's on the salary scale. That's not an increase in salaries, giving anybody a raise or anything.
Okay.
Any other questions, colleagues?
So was this the same, scale that was provided to us in the work session, Ms. Brooks, other than those that are delineated in different colors?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommend, I'm sorry.
Teacher assistants have how many days?
Dr. Moore, I guess were you asking about the salary scales or were you asking about the personnel?
Well, those that are presented here, a lot of them are not certified. So I was just, they explained to me that the highlights, those names that are delineated in highlights were the only changes. And if we receive this particular document during the work session. So Mr. Brooks said that there are no, increases. So we can move forward.
Okay.
Mrs.
So
Lewis?
I do have a question, so whether it's written on here as teacher assistant or assistant teacher, they have 187 days. Were there some, all of them are not reflecting 187 days.
Excuse me, Ms. Lewis, that means that they did not begin on the first day of school. And thus they will only be paid for the days that they were worked.
Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
The interim superintendent recommends the board approve the salary schedule for the 2023-2024 academic year.
No, it's the personnel list, not the salaries. We're not, you're on, 13.2.
The interim superintendent recommends the board approve the 2023 personnel report.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. Mr. Brooks?
GLCSD salary schedule for 2023-24.
Colleagues, I do recall during the work session that Dr. Moore pointed out that to date we have received several versions of a salary scale, and she cautioned the board on approving an entire document called salary schedules or salary scale, as opposed to the specific section that Mrs. Griffin indicated we needed to act upon, which was transportation, if I am not mistaken. I believe transportation will probably begin on 236. I'm gonna take that back. I just see the bus mechanic. I see a bus monitor, but I don't see bus drivers. Okay, transportation is on 239. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Transportation is on 239. Yes, ma'am.
If I'm not mistaken,
all of them need approving, because to my knowledge, the only thing that got approved was the administrative.
I think you said that at the work session. I think you said that at the work session.
And to answer your question, Dr. Moore, from the work session, when you asked were they the same, the only difference that I saw was the transportation one, because it had been approved since I've been here as far as the salary schedule, but it is a little confusing because on the usually when they come,
speak up a little louder because we have that rain.
Usually when they start at 0, they're at 15, but on this scale it says 17. And the cafeteria workers salary scale is different because it includes that 10% raise for the cafeteria workers, and the custodians is different because it also included a 10% raise. The rest of them are the same.
And Mrs. Thomas, with those 10% raises, can the district afford?
Well, the cafeteria, those are food service.
Right, so they have their own.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Thomas, I'm looking on page 240, looking at the secretary. What is the difference? I see the difference in the pay, but what distinguishes, what level of training or education would one need to have that?
It's not as far as training or skills, it's just based off the location, school level versus central office.
I think that's something we need to look at, you all, because I must say that secretaries in the schools, they really, really work. They do a lot of work. And I think that might be something that we might need to look at and reconsider.
Any other comments, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends the school board approve the salary schedule for 2023-24 academic year.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? I need a roll call. I, Rashawn Bailey.
Nay, Jackie Lewis.
I, Ron Moore.
I'm Evelyn Everett.
Ayes have it, motion carried. 13.4, Mr. Brooks.
Special education additional pay. Are there any questions?
And that begins on 249, colleagues. Any questions, colleagues? Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends that the school board approve the additional funds to pay employees' current salary regarding the rules and regulations of IDEA and for the implementation of IEPs as these items are required by the Office of Special Education.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. 14, Mr. Brooks.
Monthly financial report.
Mrs. Thomas, the floor is yours. Colleagues, do you have any questions for Mrs. Thomas?
Dr. Bailey, I think we skipped one. 13.5.
Okay, I apologize. Mr. Brooks said we skipped 13.5. And that begins on page 252.
251.
251 for the executive summary and 252 for the supplements. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends that the school board approve the lead teacher supplement as this item is required by the Office of Special Education to ensure the rules and regulations of IDEA are carried out.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Number 14 now, Mr. Brooks.
Monthly financial report.
Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question for Ms. Thomas. Ms. Thomas, are there any other claims on the docket related to the board retreat that were not covered by the donation?
No, ma'am.
So the amount that was donated took care of the entire retreat?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Thomas, I guess at our next, maybe work session, can we find out how much money has been approved under 16th section interest fund?
Yes, ma'am.
And just a comparison from 22, 23, and 23, 24.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, colleagues, regarding financials? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Ms. Brooks.
Mr. Brooks, I would like to request, and I don't know if I need to make it to Ms. Thomas, I would like to see a monthly report on all activities on it. And also my question is, do they complete one from the school level? Do they complete it from the school level and then submit it? Because what I'm looking for are ins and outs.
They do, as far as funds that they collect, but not gains. They do with any funds that they get in, but as far as like gains, we do up here. So I can still do you something based off of the gains and the concessions along with what they get in.
Okay, I think we need to monitor closely those fundraisers we've approved And so I would like to see how those fundraisers are coming along.
Any other comments, colleagues?
No comment.
Hearing none, Mr. Brooks, your recommendation.
Do that need to be put in the motion, Ms. Lewis request, or what?
No, as a superintendent, you can direct the business manager to make those accommodations that Mrs. Lewis has requested. But that's day-to-day.
Ms. Thomas, do you understand what you want? Okay.
Your recommendation for 14, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the July financial report and the payment of claims 955996 to 956248.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to close this session for consideration of executive session.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Ms. Watson, can you give us some volume on the mics over there since the rain is coming down so hard? I think Coach Stant wants to sing a song. Testing, testing. Is that better, you all? You can hear? Okay. Barely. Testing. If that's as loud as we can get it, we'll just have to roll with it. Okay, that'll work for us. I think it's more bass than anything. Attorney Palmer.
Mr. President,
Yeah, it's a good mic.
there was no action taken by the board in closed determination.
All right. We've been advised by Attorney Palmer, Ms. Washington, that we'll revisit one of your, Ms. Washington. We've been advised by Attorney Palmer to revisit the 16th section land, the document that you sent him. So can you come and make that recommendation, or inform the board of what we're acting upon? And it was the one, I believe, that you sent Attorney Palmer to review. Was it Attorney Oaks involved in that matter?
It's number 5 under 16th section land. It's the approval of reassignment of lease for Lot 4, Will Matthews, lessee to assignee Malibu Holdings, LLC.
Mrs. Washington.
Approval of the reassignment of lease, lot 4 from Will Matthews, leasing to assigning Malibu Holdings.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the information of the reassignment of a lease to Malibu Holdings as presented by Mrs. Washington. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Is there any other business, Attorney Palmer? The board would like to thank Altusa for providing the district with dictionaries as well as Phoenix Technology for the donation that covered the cost of the board retreat. There being no other business, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It was moved by Mrs. Abraham, Ms. Rimmer, and seconded by Dr. Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Consider yourself adjourned. Please drive safe.
Ms. Hudson.